Welcome in everybody for another episode of HRS Late Nights. I am your host, Tony Cutillo. Make sure you're following the stream as always, like I say, and I continue to say, this is a new adventure. This is Late Nights right here on a Heat Ratio Sports Network. Again, you can follow us at Heat Ratio Sports. You can follow me at Tony Cutillo RRM. That RRM stands for Rise and React Media, which is my own PR and media company, which is funding and powering this particular program. Best thing about this is you want to get live on the air. Very simple. The link is in the description wherever you're seeing this, whether you're on X, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube. In the comments, it's in there. It's literally a link that you click on your phone and it'll call you right into the program. I can get you live on the air, or you can comment all you want. And this is going to be an unbelievable action-packed show. Number one, we're going to talk about what everybody's talking about, right? I feel like Cody Rhodes. What do you want to talk about, right? Aaron, what do you want to talk about? We all know what everybody wants to talk about, right? We already know that. I think it's obvious everybody wants to talk about Philadelphia Eagles. That's fine. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Nick Sirianni. We're going to talk about the same thing, man. We're going to talk about coaching and why coaching matters. And if the rumors are true and the Pittsburgh Steelers would listen to offers for Mike Tomlin, would you go in and do the deal? Because I know I would. I like, you don't even have to ask me twice. Like, I'm all in. Like, I am all in on Mike Tomlin. Simple as that. So you don't even have to ask me twice. Give me Mike Tomlin any day of the week. So we're going to discuss that. We're also going to discuss what's going on with the team, with Jalen Hurts. I want to discuss the press conference for Nick Sirianni. I have some clips from the press conference. It just doesn't make any sense. I have some clips from Jalen Hurts. I heard Emmanuel Acho. I heard Seth Joyner talk about the defense, and they were so right. Everything that they said was right. And I heard on First Take or Speak Out or Speak or whatever the hell it's called. I heard Joy Taylor come out and she talked specifically about, why should Nick Sirianni be fired? Why should he be on the hot seat? I'm going to address that too, because I think the national perspective, the national media just doesn't understand, right? All they want to pop off is numbers, and they want to pop off records, and they want to pop off statistics. I don't really care about that, right? This 100% has to do with the eye test. This has to do with the eye test. And the eye test to me, unless you're blind, and listen, no disrespect to anybody that actually is blind, but unless you're blind, then you are not seeing what we all are seeing. And there's definitely something wrong. And you better better put your license back in the post office drop off box and get retested at the DMV, because you should not be on the road. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about something that's been going under the radar a little bit, and that is Nick Nurse culture. One of the things for the 76ers that has really turned around this year is their effort, their enthusiasm, their passion. A lot of maturity. Talked about that from guys like Joel Embiid, guys like Tyrese Maxey. They have a fun environment, right? They have a lot of things going for them right now. And Nick Nurse was not happy with the back-to-back losses. And listen, he basically said it's not good enough, right? He demands and he expects more, right? He demands and expects more. So that, knowing that and understanding that, I think that's something that we all can appreciate here in this town, in Philadelphia, right? 100%. Now, the other thing we want to get to, usually do a little wrestling segment, but tonight, listen, for those who know me and those who understand my thoughts and my interests, I'm a hip hop guy. And on New Year's Eve, MTV, VH1, collaboratively, BET, all three of them, because they've all aired it, the Behind the Music series. And I recorded every single one of them. They were fantastic. I'm a big music guy, a hip hop historian, I'd like to say. I have many, many, many hard drives full of music and albums and CDs and mixtapes. And listen, I could go on and on and on. And I watched the one of LL Cool J, and I just want to give my thoughts when we get to that segment about, are we disrespecting somebody who honestly should be labeled as the GOAT? A guy that was told he was too soft, he was too mainstream, he wasn't hardcore enough, but he just kept popping out albums, man. He just kept popping out albums, and hits after hits after hits, right? That's all he did, hits after hits after hits. And that's one thing about LL. And I think people discount that, right? I think people discount that. So we're going to get into that later. But right now, listen, what do you want to talk about? Whatever you want to talk about, that's what we'll talk about. A lot of stuff, I'm going to go on my, on my Eagles notes and what I think should happen and my personal opinion on everything. And my man David checking in. What's up, Dave? Yeah, listen, huge Flyers news. Jamie Drysdale to the Philadelphia Flyers for, get out there, guy who said he didn't want to play, man. This is Lindros all over again, right? This is Eric Lindros all over again. Think about that. It's so crazy. Karma at the end of the day, right? Karma at the end of the day. It's just nuts. It's just nuts. I'm not a huge hockey guy, but I'll be honest with you. I would love to get a couple hockey guys on to break down a couple of these trades because I'm not too familiar with Jamie Drysdale. I've seen some things flow around social media that he's a different, definitely a decent player. Just not too sure about him. So if you're a Flyers guy and you're listening right now and you want to call in, give me some insight on this trade and what you think about it. I mean, obviously it looks like Keith Jones and Danny Briere were basically, hold hostage in this whole situation, right? I say this all the time. Now, this kind of stuff happens a lot, right? A lot. That's the thing. It happens a lot. And it makes you really think, like, do these, do these teams have any leg to stand on, when they're drafting? Because if you put all your eggs in that one basket and then all of a sudden it doesn't work, I'll tell you what, man, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, it's when you build an entire off-season plan based around that draft capital and it doesn't work out, like I said, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. And this was a big problem. So we're going to talk, listen, if you, like I said, if you are a Flyers guy, let me know. Hop into the program. Let me know. Should we talk about, this is going to be where we held hostage, basically, Philadelphia Flyers, where we held hostage to basically we had to let this guy go for nothing. I don't know. And that's why I'm asking. I would love to know. I would love somebody to be like, hey, yeah, you know what? They kind of got screwed here. So that's something I'd love to know too. But a lot of things to talk about. Adam says, yeah, Nick Nurse. What's up, Adam? He says, yeah, Nick Nurse won't put up with the losing streaks. Unlike Doc Rivers, he would have said it was a scheduled loss. Yeah, scheduled loss. How is that, man? That was ridiculous. It says LL, right? LL is on NCIS. Los Angeles, one hell of an actor. That's for damn sure, right? That's for damn sure. But listen, let's get into this. We have to we listen. We have to talk about this epic collapse. It's as simple as that. I know everybody's talking about it, but I really want to zone in on people that are talking about it that quite honestly, I don't think they really understand what they're talking about. See, the difference is you can have the best record in the world. Okay. You can have the best record in the world, but if your players, if your team, if your culture, if everything that you do is not working, right? When you think is not working, then there's a problem. When your message falls on deaf ears, we've seen it in this town. We've seen it multiple times. We've seen it with guys like Andy Reid. We've seen it with guys like Chip Kelly. And I know everybody talk about, the Chip Kelly, that was a bigger collapse. I honestly don't know, man. I honestly don't know. Listen, here's the problem I have. We have how many veterans on this team? And This isn't just rookies that are falling out of favor. This is veterans that are falling out of favor. And again, maybe Nick Sirianni is not made for adversity. Maybe he's just not. This is when you find out. This is when you find out. Listen, you have to understand there are I heard a caller call in, and yes, I will occasionally listen to the radio, and I heard a caller call in, and he said, "Do you think Jeffrey Lurie's happy knowing he's going to lose all that playoff revenue?" Right? Should have been a home game. You know what he's talking about, right? Should have been at least 2 home games. I'm probably going to guess that he's not too happy. Big Jeff is not going to be too happy. And you can think whatever you want, but this team, they invested heavily in this team to not have this type of thing happen. And it has. And it's spiraled so fast. It's such a downward turn that there's no way, in my opinion, that this gets fixed that quick. Listen, I would love for it to happen. I would love for it to happen. I'm not saying I would love the Eagles to continue to move on, but I think we all can see, man. We all can see this is, this is not a championship caliber team right now. And it is mind boggling, isn't it? That's the thing. Like, you have to think this kind of collapse cannot just, wasn't because of health. This wasn't because of injury. Technically, this is the healthiest we've been in a long goddamn time. This was one thing. It was the confidence that was lost in the coaching. It's simple. It's simple. And I have to ask this question. And I've asked this question before, but I'm literally going to ask it again because I'm curious now if the opinion has changed. And I'm gonna listen. Maybe I open up a bag of worms here. I don't know, but do you remember? Do you remember when Hassan Reddick was talking about his contract and talking about things play out for themselves? You remember that? So I would love for a reporter in this town. And again, I don't like to give shout outs to too many people only because they get weird about them. But I will call it the way I see it though from time to time. But the only guy I could probably think about asking a question like this would probably be the King and Howard Eskin. I'd love somebody to ask Nick Sirianni or ask Matt Patricia, why on God's earth for a guy, and this is straight from Emmanuel Acho, a guy who's had, consistent back-to-back double-digit sack seasons. He's an elite sack master. We watched it last year. Why you take him out of the element and drop him back into coverage? I need to know, because I'll be honest with you, man. It sure seems a little shady to me. If you think about in the beginning of the year when Hassan Reddick was questioning his contract and questioning that money, you have to remember how this organization is built. This organization, we've talked about this before, this organization is built from the top. And it's run from the top. Everything goes through Howie and Jeff. Everything. Think about that. Everything. So you will never get a coach here that wants any kind of control. Zero. You're never going to get it. And I would not put it past these guys to do some shady business with a guy like Hassan Reddick by not allowing him to get those escalators, by not allowing him to get that extra money. I'm being honest, man. I listen, I'm just saying I wouldn't put it past him. I don't think it's far-fetched. I really don't, because once you go over that line, then you're kind of out of the Eagles' sight. Remember what happened with Jeremiah Trotter. Now, I understand that was Joe Banner, and that was a different regime. Still Jeffrey Lurie. Still Jeffrey Lurie, right? That's why he wound up a Washington Redskin at that time, because they were the Redskins, not the Commanders. But remember, the reason why he wound up in Washington was specifically because he popped off and opened his mouth. You don't think for 1 second that they don't think about that kind of thing? I mean, it's a shame. But I'm just saying, I feel there is definitely something to that. I don't know what it is, but there's something to that. And how Adam writes, the biggest collapse I saw yet. How you start 10-1 and then it goes in a downward spiral. There has got to be players and coaches not getting along or listening to anyone. I'm going to tell you, Adam, this team is a complete mess. This is not getting fixed. I mean, have you seen, like, here's the thing. I say this and it pisses people off, and I really don't care. You have to do the eye test. I keep saying this, man. Like, it's got to be the eye test. Like, look at these players and how distraught they look. Look at these players and look at how distraught they are after a game. They look completely lost, completely disinterested, in my opinion. Look, you had Javon Hargrave come out for the San Francisco 49ers today and talk about it was so different. It was so different when he got to San Francisco. He had to ask, is this even allowed? Is this right? He used the words going to war every day and basically labeled the Eagles practice like a country club. Again, think about it. Think about some of the comments we've heard this year about commitment, about attention to detail, about working hard. You don't think that has anything to do with these country club type of practices? Exactly. Exactly, Adam. Says Sirianni looks lost during the game, looks restless. He's nervous, man. This is why I'm telling you. This is why I'm going to consistently say this, and I'm going to continue to say it. This decision, based on what happens, I am not confident in this game on Saturday whatsoever. I'm not confident. There's just too much to fix in too little time. I just don't see it happening. I just don't. It sucks. I hate it. And, you watch this team and you watch how they move. You watch how they talk. You watch how they play. Listen, let's just call this. Let's just think about this way. You had a team on the brink of total collapse, knowing, damn sure. You heard A.J. Brown come out and be like, we all love Nick. Nick sticks up for us. Nick takes the hit. Nick takes this, right? Think about it. Think about all of that being said. And they still couldn't get up against one of the worst teams of football. Still, what does that tell you? Do they, like, what does it tell you, man? Like, I'll be honest with you, my eye test shows a completely deflated team. Completely. Nobody's on the same page. You don't hear the same kind of rhetoric being posted after the games. You don't hear it from Kelsey. You don't hear it from Lane. The only guy sticking up has been Fletch. But I think Fletch is being pissed off his damn self. And that's the thing. Like, I'm going to play. Think about this. Everything that's going on, okay? Just look at Jalen Hurts. This is not the Jalen Hurts that we saw last year, right? And I'm not talking about on the field, okay? So don't start with that. What I'm talking about right here. This was Jalen Hurts speaking. And I know you guys heard this, but I'm going to play it again. It's a minute, but what do you think here?
It's about not riding waves, never getting too high, never getting too low, and keeping the main thing with that. Right now, regardless of what's going on outside of us, anything external, it's about controlling what we can, and I truly believe this team is more than capable of taking advantage of what's in front of us. You got to do the work, and you got to do what you need to do. But all you need is a crumb. All you need is an opportunity. All I need is a crumb. So, we're gonna put our hands on deck to do that. Just simply win or go home, and nothing else matters. Nothing prior matters. Anything, none of it. Think about weathering it all.
See, man, like, listen to that. I like Jalen. I do. But Jalen doesn't seem like the same guy either, man. Nothing seems the same this year. Nothing seems the same. And they all seem like they're just so depleted, right? Right. Javon checking in says, sounds like a guy trying to stay positive despite nailed it completely. Nailed it. Knows what's going on, man. He knows. But he's trying everything he can to stay positive. Trying his damn is to stay positive. And again, it's hard, man, because he's slinging the same rhetoric every single week, and nothing's working. Nothing's happening. Nothing's changing. And that's the thing. Adam, I didn't see him smiling on the sideline. To be honest with you, I got so frustrated with that game. I started watching Red Zone, man. Straight up. I got so frustrated. Javon says the eye test shows you're a defeated team and don't know what to do. And that starts with the head coach. This team also does not know how to make adjustments. It's a perfect point because I heard somebody today talk about, Jalen Hurts needing the perfect scenario and his coach needing the perfect scenario. And when all of a sudden you get off track, and again, I said this earlier, trying to, you have to face adversity. You can't battle through it. You just can't. And that's what's showing right now. Javon says they're better off sticking with the side with Patricia. I'm surprised the Eagles are still not only are they still road favorites, but they bumped up from 1.5 to 3. Just crazy. So I don't know what's going to go on. I have no idea. But I just can't see this guy just getting off track. I mean, getting back on track, or I should say, not this guy, this team. I don't see it. I don't. And Javon, to your point about Desai, I kind of feel bad for Sean Desai because I think Sean Desai didn't even get a chance, man. Like legitimately, and I don't mean that. I know people are saying, "Oh, his defense stunk." The defense ain't no goddamn better right now. It actually looks like it's worse. It looks like it's more confused. Now, if you listened on Thursday when I had Chris Franklin on, and make sure you give him a follow at C Franklin News, beat reporter for NJ.com for the Eagles. He specifically said, with Sean Desai was implementing too many different stages of the defense, and it was confusing. And I think something like that, okay, that's fine. But you saw what they were doing, right? You saw when they brought up Patricia. I don't want to go through the whole spiel again, okay? But we know it was supposed to be Fangio, Gannon screwed them, and then lo and behold, what happens? They forced themselves to hire somebody because get late in the game, which is Desai, because he had a little bit of success 1 or 2 years, and then all of a sudden they bring in Patricia as an advisor, and it's a safety net, man. They always have safety nets. 100%. Adam says, I'd rather have Jim Schwartz back than Matt Patricia. Listen, Jim Schwartz got a raw deal, man. Like everybody, everybody was all sour on Jim Schwartz. Everybody sour on Jim Schwartz, man. And look what he's doing in Cleveland. Best defense in the league, bar none. Here's an interesting point I want to bring up. I'm glad Javon said on Sunday, he says they had success running the ball game well, and they stopped and allowed the O-line to get pummeled by the blitz and the pass protection. And here's the thing. if you didn't see in that game why we know now why Rashad Penny was not getting any clock, this dude can't pass protect to save his life. I get somebody killed. And right there will show you how lost the coaching is this year, because they run with Gainwell, who's getting solid success, right? 4 to 7 yards per carry. And Gainwell is known as a really good pass protector. So they run with Gainwell, who's the pass protector, and they bring Penny in, who can't pass protect, and they call passing plays, and they almost get the quarterback killed. That just kind of summed up the entire season for me. That just showed to me that this team and this coaching staff has no idea what they're doing. Zero. Have no idea whatsoever. Now, when you listen to Nick Sirianni, I'm gonna play one more clip. What I'm gonna say is, and this is gonna bring me to my Mike Tomlin point. Okay, it's gonna bring me to my Mike Tomlin point. You hear him and you think of everything right now that has to turn. This is the speech that you get to hear from your head coach. And you tell me if it fires you up in order to go out there and basically ruffle some feathers. Because, I mean, look, first of all, look at him. He looks like a defeated man. He looks like a defeated man. I don't even know. Like, he looks like a dude that hadn't slept in months, man. In months. Now, this is what he says about the collapse and about what they're going to do going forward.
You've won a lot. You've been through those stretches. What do you see now, losing 5 of 6, that keeps that belief for you?
Yeah, I mean, none of us are quitters. We all get up off the mat when we're down, and we get up and we keep going. Like, I don't like when you get hit in life, when you get hit in football, you got two options. You can stay down, or you can get the F up. And I know this group is fighters. I know this group will get up. I know that we've all been through things in our life that we've all had to deal with, and we know how to get up. And that's why we're all sitting in this room. The same message that I talked to the guys about last year, going into the NFC Championship game about, not only are we physically tough, we're mentally tough, and thinking about all the stuff that you've been through in your life, and why you're in this seat right now. There's the same message I would say right now, when you're going, not only when you're won 15 games like we did that last year at that time, but also when you're on a five game losing streak. Because, and so it's nobody's quitting on this team, because that's the reason all these guys are in that locker room, because they know how to freaking fight. The coaches know how to freaking fight. The players know how to freaking fight. The staff know how to freaking fight. And so we'll just get up and we'll fight again, and we'll see what happens next week when we put everything we got into it. And we've been putting everything we got into it, but we're going to put everything we got up into it this week, and we'll see what happens.
Because you've won a lot. You've been through those stretches.
There's a couple things that really bother me about that. And he caught himself, right? He caught himself. He says, when we put everything into it. And then he goes, oh, we've been putting everything into it. He caught himself. See, that's what's going. That's my issue this year. There's some more underlying things that are going on, right? But again, like, we're gonna keep fight. We're gonna get up. We're gonna freaking fight. We're gonna freaking fight. Well, I'll tell you what, man. Somebody's got to teach those guys how to fight, because they must not have grew up in the inner city. They must have grew up in the suburbs, because these dudes don't know how to fight. Man, if that's what your call fight, man, they're in trouble. They are in trouble. They are in trouble. My man Rich checking in. Rich says Giants blitz 83% of the time, which is spot on for a Wink Martindale play call game. And they played them 2 weeks before and still can't figure out a game plan. So true, man. So true. Adam says, how many days till baseball season? Not ready for Phillies. I think we're all ready for the Phillies. Hopefully they don't collapse. Rich says Sirianni hasn't got any answers from this team. Hasn't listened. His words are lost on this team. I agree, man. 100%. 100%. Javon says he knows the group is fighters, but they've done the complete opposite. Rich says this team has quit They played down on him against the Giants. It's the tired same answers we hear from him every week. It's both of them, right? It's both of them. It's him and Hurts. And that's my point, right? My point's going to continue to be that they know that the coach is fighting. They know that they're fighting for the coach to keep his job. And they came out flat, man. And they came out lackadaisical. And they came out confused. They came out unattentive. They came out unprepared. You can say what you want all the time. I said this before and I'll say it again. Little different, but when the baseball team goes south, they don't get rid of the players, they get rid of the coach. It's your job. Again, it's your job to understand when you have to step in. It's your job to right the ship. It's your job to have the team prepared. So it just is like that's my like I kept asking this question over and over again. If Sirianni is this offensive guru, which I think we've obviously seen that he's not, then where's all the adjustments? Where's all the different calls? They don't have it in them right now, man. They don't have it in them. It's ridiculous. Rich says Reddit came out and did the higher ups how they want this team to play. That's a strong indication on who runs this team. Yep. 100%, man. I think we all know. We all know this is a Howie and Jeff run ship. It's what it is. Javon says, Javon, I completely agree. I remember I said this a couple days ago. Sunday's loss eerily reminded me of Andy Reid's last game, which was against the Giants. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's so true. It's so like we all felt it, right? We all felt it. And remember the players you had on that team. Huge veteran leadership team. Still didn't matter. Didn't matter. Like once you lose the team, you're out. You're not getting them back. Like that's the thing. If you lose confidence in somebody, or you lose confidence in something, what's going to make you get that confidence back? It's very hard, man, especially in the NFL. Now, Adam's great question because it's going to segment me to the Mike Tomlin question. So who goes and who stays for the coaches? First of all, the defense and off, they're going to be wiped clear. I'll tell you that right now. It has to get done. It has to get done. Your offensive and defensive coordinators easily are gone. Simple. To me, in all honesty, head coach goes. I think that you need here again, it's about money, man. It's about money. This team is heavily invested. Or I should say, Jeff and Howie are heavily invested in this roster. Heavily invested in this roster. So at the end of the day, you could be the best culture guy in the world. You could be the best teacher in the world. But if you're losing money and there's no ROI on their investment, it's time to move on and go to somebody else. And don't think that they're not thinking about that. And that's why I want to ask everybody. Rumors came out before the playoffs even started that a specific head coach could be on the block, could be available for the right price. A guy who has never had a losing season in his 16, 17-year career as a head coach in the NFL. A guy who miraculously snuck his way into the playoffs with a dreck of a roster. When we come to that, when we talk about the quarterback position, right? You think about Kenny Pickett. It didn't really live up to expectations that gets injured. And you think about Mason Rudolph now. You look at it And you say to yourself, how does he get it done, man? How does he get it done? And he just does it every year. Every year, sneaks in the 7th seed, and he commands respect. That's the thing. Like, could you see Mike Tomlin running a press conference like that? Hell no. Hell no. Mike Tomlin, he would never even think to say some shit like that. That's what I love about Tomlin, man. Tomlin would 100% turn this team right around. And here's the thing about Tomlin. Like, you have to remember that the Pittsburgh Steelers, that ownership, the Rooney ownership, you know how hard it is to, continually be the head coach of that franchise who doesn't want to go out and spend big contracts on big money players and continues to build within the draft, continues to make their homegrown talent. So that's my question. If Mike Tomlin is available and they want some heavy duty draft capital, looking at this team right now, are you willing to do the deal? Because I know I am. I am all in, man. Listen, I got screwed over with the hashtag do the deal for Marcus Mariota. I'm not going to lie. I was one of those dudes. I said, yo, do the deal, man. I'm in. Because I'm all about taking chances, man. Like, you have to take chances, in my opinion. You just have to. And if you don't take chances, you never really know what those results will be. And I was all in for Marcus Mariota. Thank God. Thank God it never happened, right? But Mike Tomlin, I'll tell you now. Javon says that they get rid of the coordinators, it gives Sirianni another year to get it right. But do Howie and Lurie make the call on the next coordinators? And that's the problem. And I'll tell you what, before we even get to the Tomlin comments, if we're gonna do that, I don't want a new, young, up and coming. No, I don't want that. I want, for my defensive coordinator, I want Steve Spagnuolo. Obviously not him per se, but that's the kind of personality that I want. I want a Spags. I want a Martindale. I want a Wade Phillips, right? I want a Romeo Crennel. I want a Leslie Frazier. I want a dude who is cut from that old school cloth, man. That's what I want. I want a dude who's gonna go punch somebody in the mouth. That's what I want. I don't want any of this new analytical bullshit. I want a dude who's going to go punch somebody in the mouth and he's going to go after zero blitz. Listen, I'll be honest with you. Give me Riverboat Ron. I'll take Ron Rivera as my defensive coordinator. Honest to God, like, that's the kind of guy I want. Now when we talk about OC, I would say give me somebody new and inventive, man. Give me somebody like a McVay. Find me the next Kyle Shanahan. Find me the next Shane Steichen. You can say whatever you want about a couple plays on stretch. It doesn't matter, man. Doesn't matter. The dude's there's still an offensive mastermind, right? He's still an offensive mastermind. Now, Rich says, I would take Tomlin in a heartbeat. Javon says Tomlin walks the walk and talks the talk. That's the thing. He doesn't even have to say anything. He doesn't even have to say anything. That is when you command respect. He says, Rich says Steelers have a culture and he demands respect and has a system and he has the formula, man. Adams, the same thing. Tom has a good culture and he's a player's coach and is respected heavily, which is true. Rich also says, I agree. Calculated chances you have to go for sometimes. You just have to. You have to go 100%. Rich says, give me an OC that has motion on offense. And that's the thing. Like, I don't know how many people saw it. Javon probably saw it because I know Adam's a betting guy. Adam probably saw it. But that throw from Carson Wentz to Puka Nacua was unbelievable. I was just like, wow. Are we seriously watching this right now? And, listen, man, good for him. Good for him. I'm not hating. Good for Carson Wentz. I care less. I'm not mad. That situation, it played itself out. Good for him, man. It's just funny that we're sitting here scratching our heads with all the weapons we have. And then here's Sean McVay putting a guy like Carson Wentz in the driver's seat and giving him all the opportunities to succeed from a masterful play calling sheet that just allows him to be Carson Wentz. It's just amazing to me. Absolutely amazing to me. Now, Javon says what I was thinking, and I think he's getting screwed, Javon. I think he's getting screwed, and that's Eric Bieniemy. You know, I talked about this on, I think it might have been Thursday. I talked about one of the reasons why Eric Bieniemy went to Washington. And I think he went there, number one, because he got the assistant head coach title, but he knew that was probably the best opportunity that he was going to have to be able to step into a head coaching role. And he's going to get bypassed again, man. I'm telling you right now, that Josh Harris is, I think he's in over his head. He's hiring the wrong people. And I don't think I think they're going to pass right over him, Javon. And I think it's such a shame to see what he's been able to do this year in flashes, right? In flashes with an offensive line that needs so much work, right? Think about it. When our O line needs so much work, still been able to be a respectable team out there. Still. So I do. I like Bieniemy on offense. I thought he scripted a lot of really good plays this year. You know, listen, looking at Brian Robinson, I think he put Brian Robinson in so many great situations to succeed. He really did. And I think that was ingenious because Brian Robinson is a bigger kind of guy. Like he has that Derrick Henry kind of, height about him. And, it's not easy, man, to put these guys in the right position. There's so many things you have to put in perspective. And I think he did a really good job in managing everything this year. I really do. Now, Adam says, do you think Lurie and Howie will be interested in Tomlin? Yes. I think they're going to be interested in Bill Belichick. I think they're going to be interested in Mike Tomlin. And I think they're going to do their due diligence, and they're going to have some head coach meetings. I really do. And I think that they're going to have to sit there and wait and figure out if this is something they want to pursue, if this is the next step, into building that Philadelphia empire, so to speak. And again, I think that they do themselves a disservice if they don't at least look. Now, Rich says Howie won't want Tomlin because he's too powerful of a coach. That's kind of true, but he's been that way for a long time in Pittsburgh, so I don't think he minds it, right? I don't think he minds it. So I think it's actually a really good match, to be honest with you, for both of them. But again, a lot of things have to go the right way. A lot of things have to go the right way. Would you take a look at Mike Vrabel? I love old school, man. I love Vrabel. Again, doing a lot with nothing. Players respect him. You know what I dig about Mike Vrabel? That he greets every player after the game. I love it. Like he's the guy standing outside the locker room, giving dudes chest bumps or fist bumps, letting them know, yo, man, we're good. Great job today. Pointing out specific plays. I'll tell you what. You want respect. You want respect as a head coach. Very easy to get. I say this all the time. I coach teenage boys. 16, 17, 18-year-old boys. And the one method that I use that garners the respect the most is actually watching the game and pointing out in your muscle memory some of the plays that they've done throughout the game, showing that you had an eye on the entire field, that you were watching the entire game. And I think that's important. And I like Vrabel a lot. And Javon, listen, You know why I love him, right? Because he's learned from one of the best. That's why I think Bieniemy is going to be such a good coach, and I still don't understand why he was getting passed over. I know he has some stuff in the past and things of that nature, but I mean, he's such a good coordinator, and he's learned so much over the years. There's no way he wouldn't be an attention to detail kind of head coach. No way. He would 100% would. Rich says Vrabel is hard nosed and old school football. Exactly, but not. But here's the thing about Vrabel: he's still not naive enough to know that who his big weapons are. You know, we're going to go away from Derrick Henry so we can throw the ball down the field a couple times. Okay, that's great, but you still go back to Derrick Henry. So he was still trying to figure that system out, and he got better as time went on. But I like Mike Vrabel a lot. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. Let me be honest. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. Now, it remains to be seen what's going to happen in the coming weeks. Obviously, we have to wait till Monday night, which kind of stinks. Gotta wait the whole weekend to see what happens, even though I think I know what's going to happen, which is going to stink. But listen, I think you're just delaying the inevitable if you do win the game. But hey, man, if you get an extra game out of it and you can get healthier, never know. You never know. But more will come out on the Philadelphia Eagles in the coming days and what they're looking at and if they can kind of break out of this funk. So we're going to be interested to see, man. We're going to be interested to see. But speaking of head coaches, let's again, we have 48 minutes on the Eagles. I can always talk so much Eagles, okay? Because the same thing over and over again. But for me, for my money, if you're checking in Heat Ratio Sports, make sure you follow us at Heat Ratio Sports. I am Tony Cutillo. This is HRS Late Nights. We're here every Monday through probably Thursday. I'm going to cut a day off because I want to give myself a break. So Monday to Thursday from either 11 to 1, 11 to 12, 11 to 12:30. But within that those 2 hours, that's exactly where I think we will wind up. But looking at coaches and looking at turning things around, Nick Nurse, who we talked about on this program, has just instilled a fantastic culture within the 76ers organization, something that we haven't had in a long time. Very structure based, demanding excellence from his players, not taking mistakes lightly. He's a very attention to detail kind of guy, which is what we needed, right? Completely different from Doc Rivers. Completely different. And you see a rejuvenation from a lot of these players under Nick Nurse, which is why, honestly, it's why I wanted Nick Nurse. I thought having Nick Nurse would just help us tremendously. And it has. It has. And he's holding his players to a higher standard, right? If you obviously you listen to him talk, and when he talks, he's very direct at specific plays, players, timelines, tile. I mean, he kind of knows everything when it comes there. Rich says, Nick Nurse has a system as a coach and doesn't stand for poor playing performances. Exactly. And that's what I've always liked about Nick. And again, that's kind of old school, right? Rich also says if they win, Sirianni gets another year, but everyone goes except Stoutland. Jeff Stoutland, man, the man, the myth, the legend, Stoutland University. I'm curious to see how many people are under Stoutland University because I know it's a lot. I definitely know it's a lot. It's a whole lot, but the report came out by Windhorse today that the 76ers are going to be very aggressive, during the trade deadline because of all the assets they have, and that Daryl Morey said he's looking to go all in. I like it. Listen. I thought about this numerous times, and it's something to where you think about it and you think about what is the longevity of a Joel Embiid, and I think that's where you make your mark. Is you think about Joel, you think about how many years he has left, and you say to yourself, do I have to go all in this year? And I kind of feel like you do. I think if you don't do it this year, I don't think you're ever going to get this opportunity, man. I really don't. I just don't think you're going to get this opportunity. And again, prayers go out to Tyrese Halliburton. A really devastating looking injury tonight. Hopefully, sometimes when you see injuries like that, they look worse than they actually are. But again, prayers go out to Halliburton for sure. Rich says, if not now, when do you go all in? Joel doesn't have too many great years left. Exactly. And that's my point, Rich. 100%. I'm saying, honestly, you probably go 2 more years tops. And again, he may have to transfer his game. I know he doesn't like it, but it's more of a low post presence, kind of like, Tim Duncan would play down on that paint. I think you have to transition to that. You just do. If not, when do you go all in? Joel doesn't have it. Right. I'm sorry. I read the same thing. Yeah. A couple years, I think that he has left, but after that, it's going to be a crapshoot, man. Things are going to start to break down. And I don't think you want to be around when all that stuff breaks down. So, again, I think Nick Nurse was probably, the best coach for this system and this team to get us back over that hump. And again, I'm curious to see what kind of moves that Daryl Morey makes. I think that Daryl Morey will, number one, he wants everybody to know that he's still got that power, right? I mean, it's simple. He wants to know everybody, I have the power. He wants the power. Simple as that. But, you know, looking at it, looking at it, he wants to be able to flip whatever he has to give him some top ROI and not put a lot of money out of his pocket. I think he could probably do that. Rich says exactly. I said he has 2-3 years left tops. Morey has to buy at the trade deadline. Yeah, listen, I agree, man. I would say 2, 3, maybe stretching it. I definitely would say 2. So as we're on break right here, we're getting ready for the next segment. I want you guys to think about something. I want you guys to think about number one, would you give up all your assets to get one of these top players? Or would you go a different route and get a couple really good guys? Again, Jabon mentioned, a couple guys last week, which I thought was brilliant. And I think there are guys that could definitely, talking about marketing, which I think marketing could be huge. Lawyer marketing, I think it's a great, great, great. Um, you know, Rich says in a perfect trade, who would you want to get? That's a great question, man. It's a great question because right now there's a lot of chemistry on this team. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we have to look at. There's a lot of chemistry on this Sixers team right now, and that includes bench players. Right? Let's not forget about that. And can I just say one thing? I got to listen again. This is HRS Late Nights. I'm your host, Tony Cutillo. We're going to probably go to about 12:30 here. If you want to call into the show, the link is there. I'll get you live on the line. Comment away, like, subscribe, give us a follow at Heat Ratio Sports. You can follow me personally at Tony Cutillo RRM. RRM stands for Rise React Media, which is my PR company. So if you know anybody looking for media or PR services, I can tell you what, one of the best in the biz, man. I got a lot of references and I can lay them out to you. And I love what I do. But here's the thing, Rich. In a perfect trade, who would you want to get? This is really, really tough, right? It's really tough because you definitely have to have a guy that's willing to share the rock, right? He can't be a me guy. So it's going to have to be an understanding about how this team's going to move forward. I think it could happen. I do. I think it could happen. But I think you're probably better off getting like the Laura Marketings of the world and kind of letting Joel see. That's the greatest part about this is when you have the best player in the world. I mean, lack of a better say, he really is. He's that good. His game is going to translate to anybody else that you bring in just by playing with him. Just by playing with them. So one of these guys that may have possibly gotten cut and didn't give, any kind of notice or, listen, it could be a guy that actually works, right? Think about it. be a guy that actually works. And that's the thing. Like sometimes you see a lot of these players get caught and released, and they're looking to win. I mean, perfect example. I know he came through the trade, but Morris has looked exceptional at times. He's rejuvenated. He really is. He's rejuvenated. But when you play with a guy like Joel Embiid, he just elevates everybody's game to a different level because now you want to be, you want to strive to be great. You want to strive to be that much better than you were. And I think that's very, very important. So looking at the trade deadline, I, I'm not I would kick the tires on Zach LaVine. I really would, depending on what the options are, what they would want in return for somebody who has a expiring contract, right, in another month and a half. I don't see it. But I didn't know if we had anything at home either. Um, Meaning like, do we have anything that possibly we could get out of a different player? And this is what I want to say too. Give myself a little shout out here. I can't wait. Big interview on a Blue Coats Beat coming up this week. Make sure you're subscribed to the Blue Coats Beat on all. For some reason, I can't get it on Apple yet. Apple's been a pain in the butt. But go to Spotify. You can follow it. If you listen, it'd be great if you leave me a review. Me and Coach Joe, we do a great job together. A lot of synergy together. But we do have the former player, also G League president Sharif Abdur Rahim, coming on the program at the end of the week, which will be pretty cool. Talking to him about the NBA G League. But speaking of that, have you seen some of these young blue coats, man? Like honestly, like I keep talking about Ricky Council, but Lofton's coming in and playing, Tariq playing. I mean, these kids are playing, man. They're playing with a different kind of energy. I think it's they're seeing that these two-way contracts are working, and these guys are being plucked off the market and being elevated to a starting roster, even as a bench plays, but as an active roster, game day roster, I should say. So there's a lot of interesting things. Rich says Mars has been playing smart, good. Listen, veteran basketball. Not to sound like no pun intended, but like a Marcus Smart. Think about it. He's just playing fundamentally sound basketball. That's not easy to do. It's really not easy to do. Rich says that contract with LaVine, though, and the Bulls are not playing better without LaVine in the lineup. LaVine's contract's pretty hefty, and that's what they're going to be looking at. They're looking to save some cash. Do we want to take on that project? And that's what we have to think about. Do we want to take on that job? I mean that money. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if we want to take that on. And I think that's why the assets they're going to be asking in return are going to continue to shrink down because they can't get them, right? They can't get the assets that they want because that contract is so big. So it's going to be interesting to see what Daryl Morey does. Does he go the mid-level exception route? Basically getting that veteran that can still sling it, still play, and putting him in the rotation. As far as that chemistry of the 8 or 9 players that play every night, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be very, very interesting. We have a lot to talk about. We continue to have a lot to talk about. We got a whole week of things to talk about. I can't wait, man. Can't wait. I have a couple people come on the show this week again. I can say that you can hear me. I'll be on WENG radio Saturday morning with my man Spitz on Sports, talking about that preview and NFL playoff weekend. We're going to be on Sirius, back on Sirius, co-hosting this Saturday and the following Saturday. Late ones, man. Late ones. No HRS Late Nights, but late nights on Sirius from 11 to 1. So make sure you're tuning into that as well. We're talking, obviously, all the NFL playoff games, but a lot of prop bets and lines and overs and unders and a lot of stuff to talk about. We only have a few weeks left of NBA betting. So, we have to get it in, man. We have to get it in. Again, this is HRS Late Nights. I am your host, Tony Cutillo. A lot of big things coming up. If you want to get involved in the program, very simple. You can click on the link. You click on the link, all you on your phone, click on the link. I can get you live on the air. We can have a conversation, whether it be about the Sixers, whether it be about the Eagles. I'm asking a question. Would you go all in for Mike Tomlin? Would you fire the entire coaching staff? Hire a guy like Mike Tomlin through a trade? You have to give up a lot of assets to get him, but would it be worth it? Would it be worth it? And then we talk about, again, on the other side, Nick Nurse instilling a different kind of culture in the Philadelphia 76ers, something that we haven't seen in a while, something that's going to catch on. It's simple. It's going to catch on. So we're going to find out about that as well. But, going to our last segment tonight, we normally do some wrestling, and tonight was Monday Night Raw. So I have not watched it. So please do not check in about what happened, because I haven't been able to watch it. My man Joe checking in says, would pass happy Lurie want a strong, run-minded head coach? There you go. Joe comes in with the comments. He's so true. Because you heard Jeff over the time consistently say what? He wants offense. He wants points. He likes excitement. It's the reason why I don't see the whole Bill Belichick ref. Everybody talk about Belichick because they have that New England kind of base, but no way, man. I still think Bill stays in New England. I don't think he goes anywhere. I think he stays in New England. I think he's willing to relinquish some of the control to be able to stay, with the team on for being able to just finally say, you know what? Maybe I give it up a little bit. So I think Belichick is willing to give it up in order to get more and more out of his players, depending if that's going to be New England, whether it be Atlanta. Not sure where he's going to go. I still think he stays home. So it's going to be curious to see what Bill Belichick does. And you're right, Rich. Lurie wants a 35-point offense. And what does he do? He puts his spin on everything, trying to figure out if we have the right guy or not. Like, he's looking at the college film. He's looking at the young guys coming up. He's looking at guys, diamonds in the rough, so to speak. But again, until you have that guy, it's all for naught, man. It's all for naught. That's what it feels like. It's all for naught. Now we're going to wrap this up on a musical session pretty soon. So make sure you get ready for some LL Cool J talk. I got some interesting questions when it comes to the world of hip hop, because I'm a hip hop historian. So we're gonna get to that shortly. Joe says, I think Belichick and Kraft will come to terms at a meeting at Orchids of Asia. Oh, yeah, they'll both get I won't say it, but they'll both get their massage, so to speak. How's that? But yeah, listen, I agree, Joe. I do. I think they come to terms. I think the biggest thing is Kraft wants him to relinquish some of the control. And I think he not only does he need to do it, I think he wants to do it. I do. I'm just going to have to keep a lot of eyes on him. He can't eat like he normally eats, right? Or I should say eats, but when I say eat, I mean the way he's being fed. Because he's fed from the draft the players that he wants, so he can't always eat the way he wants to eat. This is a saying that I usually say, but so it's going to be interesting to see where he winds up. It really is going to be interesting to see where he winds up. But let's get into a little hip hop talk. For all my hip hop historians out there, and anybody who's a 90s hip hop kind of guy, late 80s hip hop kind of guy, this is for you. This is the segment for you. And again, I started this show because not only am I a huge sports fan, but I'm a huge music fan. I'm a huge everything fan, to be honest with you. So many different things I want to talk about. This show is just starting to ramp up, man. This show is just starting to ramp up. I can tell you that right now. So many different things playing for this show, which is great. I like I said, I can't wait, and I appreciate everybody's support because I continue to elevate, man. I got some things in the works that are coming up. Oh, by the way, real fast, tomorrow night, I can't wait, man. Tomorrow night, HRS live reunion show. Myself, Pittsburgh John, Coach Dave, and Mikey Googs, the four of us back on a screen tomorrow night, 9 p.m. live, talking about this mess that we call the Philadelphia Eagles. But right now we're going, obviously everybody knows 2023 was the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And I am a huge hip hop historian. I go back, I have tons and tons and tons of albums. And for me personally, Rich Says Mama Said Knock You Out, talking about talking about LL, Mama Said Knock You Out, which was the comeback album. After everybody said he was soft, he was too mainstream. Here's what I'll say about LL, that a lot of stuff that I did not know that I highly respect about LL. So LL's number one, LL Cool J. Ladies love Cool J, right? That nobody gives him the respect, in my opinion, in the rap game, right? Not on the screen, not like in the rap game. I don't think he gets the proper respect from all the people that he deserves. I don't. He gets it. Listen, I know Eminem. Eminem says that's his guy. Well, yeah. So watching the Behind the Music show let you in on some secrets that I didn't know. When Eminem talked to one of the guys he knows and says, "Yo, like I've always been an LL Cool J fan. Can you ask him where he gets his gold chains, man? Because I want to wear them. I want to get my own. I want to buy them own." That's M's knocking albums out the park. It's not like M needs money or needs handouts. Instead of LL just telling him, LL gets them made for him and sends them to him. LL starts Rock the Bells radio on Sirius for the OG, right? That's what he says, the OG listening audience, the OG rappers, the people that are being forgotten about. Here's one thing about what I loved on the Blue Coats beat when he had Sonny Hill on. Sonny Hill specifically mentioned about, we do the youth of today a disservice by not force feeding them information of the past, because what happens is these kids, they don't go back and look at the history of the music or the culture or of the sport. It's always about what is this right now, always. And unfortunately, because of that, guys like Run DM, or I say groups like Run DMC, guys like Cool Mo D, Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, these guys are got Salt and Pepper. These people, these rappers are forgotten about. They're forgotten about. And the problem is, when you forget about them, they don't get the respect and the accolades they deserve. And LL said, enough with this. Enough with this shit. I'm gonna start my own station. And not only did he start his own station on Rock the Bells radio on Sirius XM, he gave the OGs a stake of equity into the station to take care of them, to basically say, "Yo, man, like I'm paying you back for paving the way for me." And that was something I did not know. I had no idea. And knowing that about LL Cool J made me think of him in a different light, man. I've always thought LL was a GOAT. I've always thought LL was a GOAT. And he went through a time. Listen, man, he stood up to Jay-Z, right? When Jay-Z took over Def Jam, he stood right up to Jay-Z, man. So right up to Jay-Z and was like, "Look, you're not promoting me. You're not doing enough for me. You should be." And he was out. He was out. And that's the thing. Like, he stood up to that, and he heard all the people, because listen, that's what happens. What would you feel like when you're from your own culture, right? Your own genre of music, that people are calling you out, saying, because they're saying there was a time when gangster rap was so big. There was a time when gangster rap was so big. I mean, you had the groups like Public Enemy, right, coming out. You had, Chuck D was one of the best MCs of all time for Public Enemy, right? Ice T, OG, Original Gangster, right? You talk like they were just preaching, and it was all political gangster rap, and that wasn't what LL was all about. LL was changing the game, but he was probably ahead of his time, right? When he came out, with a lot of those albums, especially the Mr. Smith album, it is severely underrated. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It is severely underrated. Mr. Smith is a hell of an album. Mama Said Knock You Out. I mean, that was one of those that took him to the next level. That took him to the next level, right? That took him to the next level. And Rich is right. Rich says the problem is history isn't taught like it used to be. It's not. Javon says, "Man, I'm Bad" by LL Cool J is one of my favorite tracks, and I didn't know about it until I heard it during the Last Dance documentary. Well, here's the thing, Javon. The funny thing is, that was my introductory to rap music. See, I'm old head, right? I'm 45. And my first album was I'm Bad by LL Cool J, Bigger and Deffer. That was my first album. And I remember like it was yesterday. And I knew no rapper can rap quite like I can. Take a muscle bound man, put his face in the sand. Like I still remember, man. Like that was my jam. And I was like, who is this dude? Like I related to LL at that time. And I became an LL fan. And everything he released after that to me was just a hit. Now, it's funny because a lot of people don't remember the beef that he had with Cannabis. And Cannabis was to me kind of like a one-hit wonder. And Cannabis came out, if you remember, with the single Second Round Knockout. It was supposed to be basically it was basically a beef up against Mama Said Knock You Out. Cannabis was basically saying, yo, I knock out the competition, I can knock down LL. So LL, and basically that was at the time where a lot of people were saying, yo, LL's too mainstream. He's not really a rapper. He's a pop star. He wasn't a pop star, man. You out of your mind. So what if you remember, that's when one of my favorite verses of all time, when LL dropped that verse in 4-3-2-1. If you go back and you listen to that, that was the direct shot back to Cannabis. And I'll tell you what, man, he killed him in that. Took him straight down, in my opinion. Straight down. That was one of the best lines and bars that I heard LL spit in my life. And the thing that I loved about LL is he always stayed true to who he was. Never changed, man. He never changed. I always respect that about him. He didn't care. He made his music the way he wanted to make his music. He didn't care what people said. He was dropping platinum hits consistently. Javon, the 80s, 90s hip hop and R&B has so many classics. I tell you. No, I say this all the time. And if we all remember in the 90s to me is the best era of music for every genre. The era of music in the 90s, if you think about it, right? If you think about all the groups and all the hits in the 90s, we could be here all night, but it's every genre, right? In the 90s, you had the boy bands, right? You had a pop scene with NSYNC, with 98 Degrees, right? With the Backstreet Boys. You had the pop with Christina Aguilera, with Britney Spears, right? You think about that. Then everybody forgets the alternative era in the 90s when alternative rock was at its peak with groups like Green Day, right? That really, really stemmed it off. And then you go over to the R&B sector, and man, do I even have to get started with all the groups? Jodeci, H-Town, Next. Right? It just the R&B. I mean, listen, I know people don't want to talk about R. Kelly, okay, because of what he did, but if we could just for one moment forget about whatever he did and just think about the music from R. Kelly, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then you go over to hip hop, man. Like started with the Beastie Boys and just kind of continue to attribute after that. Adam says Biggie Smalls and Tupac. Listen, again, a lot of people always get into that, who is the best rapper of all time and who is the best lyricist, and I think you have to go with several different directions because, I'm never going to put Biggie on my top. I'm never going to put Pac on the top of the list. I think a lot of people forget how good people like a Rakim were on the microphone. People, I tell you what, I mean, you talk about lyricists. I don't know if there's anybody better than Jada Kiss. And that's the thing. Like Jada, the way his voice, the way he can rhyme, his style was something that was unheard of, man. Like, and he still sounds the same today. R.I.P. Big Pun. If Big Pun never has a heart attack and dies, man, Big Pun could have been one of the goats. To be able to rap that fast in that rhythm, in that speed, wow, unbelievable. Adam says, "What about Snoop? Though, listen, Snoop stood the test of time, man. Snoop stood the test of time. I still think, the old Snoop is always the best. I mean, Deep Cover is one of the best tracks ever. Deep Cover, obviously, remade with Pun and Joe on Twins on Capital Punishment. Capital Punishment, for my money, one of the best albums of all time. Rick checking in with Eric B. and Rakim, Eric B. is president, right? So you think about that, makes you want to go hop on Spotify right now. And Javon checking in with the Blackstreet 112 only. Oh my God, 112, Monica, Brandy, Total, Case, Carl Thomas, man. Throw D'Angelo in there. Brian McKnight. I mean, we could go on and Keith Sweat, get me twisted. Like, I'm gonna go hit. Like, come on, man. Like, let's full transparency here. I know, Javon. I know you weren't around for this. Adam, no, but I know my man Rich and I know my man Joe. Were around for this. Who remembers Between the Sheets? The Quiet Store used to call in and request a song. This is Johnny. This is from Johnny to Kim. Kim, he loves you so much. You remember that, man? Like, I remember listening to them dudes. They're calling up. You'd be sitting there, hurrying up, scrambling. Hey, honey, listen to the line. He's going to call you out. Tony Story, going to call you out. He's going to call you out. Oh, man, the late nights, the Between the Sheets, man. That was the time, man. That was time. I'm all hyped thinking about this right now. Javon said, listen, Wu-Tang. Oh my God. Listen, it burst so many careers. We could do a whole show just on Wu. And I remember, I remember, 100% that I went to, I grew up in the inner city of Philadelphia. I went to North Catholic High School for boys. And I remember sitting in the lunchroom. I had 6 lunch. I just got one of their crappy slices of pizza that I had to hurry up in line to get. And I remember my buddy, shout out Jason Hull, my man Pink. He said, "Yo, I got this new track, man. This new group. You gotta check them out." And I was like, "Oh, who's that?" He's like, "Oh, they're called Wu-Tang Clan." I was like, "Wu-Tang Clan?" He's like, "Yeah, they do this Shaolin style, this like kind of like kung fu kind of." And I was like, "What is he talking about?" And all I heard was METHOD, man. And I was like, what is that? Hey, you get off my cloud. And I was like, I heard meth and I was like, what is this? And it spurned from there, man. It spurned from there. And it doesn't. You know what? It was the best, honestly. And I'm going to say this, and I say this wholeheartedly because I think everybody knows who I am and what I'm about. the best thing I loved about the 90s when all this came out, man, it wasn't a black or a white thing. It wasn't a Hispanic thing. It was a music thing, man. Like music just brought us all together. And that's what I loved about it. Like music brought us together. We you know, and we all wanted it. We were all involved in it. It was such a great time for society where we could, nobody was, looking at ethnicities and backgrounds. We just listened to music, man. Like it was so great. And the best thing about the music is it all told stories. Right? It all told stories. Like real fast before we start talking about Wu-Tang, but to go back to LL, right? To watching that behind the music, finding out. I mean, how crazy is this that LL's I don't know if you guys seen it or know the history, but so when LL was like 5 years old, his mom was involved in a relationship, obviously with his dad, and his dad was a little crazy, and his dad went ballistic one night, and they lived with the grandparents, which his future mother-in-law and father-in-law, and he showed up, and not only did this dude did his dad shoot his mom, but he shot his grandmother and his grandfather in cold blood, man. He didn't kill them and was on the run. And it said that his mom was so spiritually driven that she was able to forgive his father for that. And it's crazy. You talk about deep, right? And here's why I bring this up, because remember that song Father Figure by LL? That was a song because he reconnected with his father, and because he said he needed his father, and he was able to look past all that stuff and forgive his dad, and that's why he made that song. And that's why I love rap music, man, because a lot of it tells a story, man, and that's what's great. Quiet Storm, Power 99. Rich says I called in. I believe in you and me. Remember, it was always the last song of the night. It was I believe in you and me was always the last song of the night, and everybody was calling in. And that's where you heard, from Mike to Tanya, from Donnie to George. It was like, oh my God, it was a litany of lists. It was crazy. Joe says Q102 requests on Friday nights. That was I'll tell you what. Remember, I used to go over to the Woodbine over in Jersey, right off of 73, and they would have like total request nights, and I think Q102 was there as well, and with Chio, or I forget who was there, but that was a good time, man. It was a good time to be a music fan. ODB, Russell Jones, rest in peace, Old Dirty Bastard. Wow, listen, Gravel Pit, Gravel. Man, Joe is going back, man. Like Gravel Pit. Joe, where did you come up with that from? That's like bringing somebody back from the dead. That is one of the that song from Woo. Man, that is one of the underground hits. That is one of the underground hits, man. Like I love it. I love it. Joe comes out with Gravel Pit because most people would go, listen, they're going to go Cream, they're going to go Method Man, they're going to go Woo Ain't Nothing to F with, they're going to go, but Joe goes Gravel Pit. I'll tell you what though, in my opinion, for me, I think that I still can't get the violin and Reunited. That beat, man, that beat I could listen to all night. It's Woo, mother. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, and then not just all about beat, but how about like was like the Fugees, the score, one of like the best albums of all time, man. Again, like one album, that's it, right? One album, like it just killed it. Ooh la la, Killing Me Softly. I mean, man, I could go on all night. I really could. Love. Let me tell you something, Rich. Offspring to self-esteem. That was a great song, man. That was a great song. I tell you, one of my favorite songs of all time because I'm a hip hop rock. I listen to everything. I listen to everything. Huge Skid Row fan. Sebastian Bach. I'll remember you. 18 in Life. Great songs. I'm a huge Metallica guy. I could listen to Metallica all day long. And one of my favorite songs, and I don't know if anybody knows this song, and if you don't, you need to, is Possum Kingdom by the Toadies. I remember I was out one night at a bar, at an event. They had DJ, and he was kind of like playing like Name That Tune. And he was throwing like some song. He's like, oh, this is going to be a tough one. And he played Possum Kingdom by the Toadies. And I was the only one in the entire play. There were like 400 people in there. Nobody could guess except me. It was like one of my favorite songs. I loved every minute of it. I love Possum Kingdom by the Toadies. The Wood by Pensalk. Now, Javon says The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, another classic album. Probably Javon. I'm going to go out on a limb here, but probably like a top 3 vocalists of all time in Lauryn Hill. Her sounds were unbelievable, man. Like, obviously, like it's so funny. You listen to some of the queens of R&B, Mary, obviously led by Mary J. If you're not a Mary J. Blige fan, you don't know music, man. Mary J. is, oh my Lord. I still, her tribute performance, on the BET Awards was like 2019, 2020, whatever was unbelievable. I could watch it over and over again. The performance from Ashanti, there's another one. Ashanti doesn't get enough credit for being, a queen of not only R&B, but also hip hop, right? I mean, hip hop. It's like, yeah, Mary J. could flat out sing and me. Again, she's just an amazing talent. Rich, I missed this comment, but it's so huge. Yep, nope. Music was no color back then. Listen to everything is still doing that, and that's what I loved about it. I was always brought up like that. It was instilled in me. It was instilled in my culture. Man, I didn't care. I listened to it, man. I don't. And listen, I will say this: full transparency. I'm an open book, man. I got ridiculed a ton, man, telling me I shouldn't be listening to that music. Right? What are you trying to prove? Like, bro, like I like music. Like, that's what I like. I didn't see any barriers or any walls, or I just want to listen to music, man. Like, come on. That was the best thing about back then. But you still had those idiots that was trying. Oh, here we go, Adam. I like this. I like when people ask you questions like this because I'm a country guy too. I am. I'm a country guy too. Who's your favorite country artist, old and new? That's a good one, man. Man. Well, I tell you, old. I go back, man. Like, you have to remember, my mom and dad, huge country fans. I'm talking like back in the Randy Travis, Clint Black, Garth Brooks kind of days where, they were just starting out, man. They were just starting out. I mean, that's what I grew up on. Like, I grew up on listening to Garth Brooks and listening to Randy Travis, man, forever and ever. Amen. Like, you got me singing now. Like, I Reba McEntire, the Judds, like, that's what my mom grew up. So I listened to that. But so I honestly would say it's probably old school. I would go, I probably would go Garth. I was a big Garth guy, but I will tell you this. I'm a huge Kenny Rogers fan. I'm a huge Kenny Rogers fan, man. I love Kenny. That's the one thing, man. I could listen to Kenny Rogers all day long. And again, it's just it's what I grew up on. I grew up on The Gambler. I grew up on Kenny. But nowadays, new, I'll tell you, man, like there's so many phenomenal new country artists. Like I was a huge Florida Georgia Line. Yeah, obviously they split up. Wasn't a huge Luke Bryan guy, not a huge Kenny Chesney guy. I I kind of dug, Keith Urban a little bit. I thought I like because he had like that kind of rock with him. Obviously, a lot of the new school, the new women are phenomenal. Like Kelsey Ballerini is unbelievable. Fantastic. Mara Morris, unbelievable. I mean, Old Dominion, Rich says another great group. Who's the group with the I love that song Pontoon. I can't remember, man. Who's a group with it? It's like two women and two guys. I can't remember the group, but they're another fantastic new group. Obviously everybody likes Kane Brown, right? Kane Brown. Listen, Chris Stapleton is phenomenal, just phenomenal, right? There you go. Now, Adam says, well, I love Conway Twitty. Conway Twitty is a great name. Little Big Town. That's it. Little Big Town. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, like Conway Twitty, man, there's a name for you, man. There's a name. Jelly Roll. Listen, I got to give it to Jelly Roll, man. I know he's new and he's authentic. He's authentic, and that's what I like about nowadays too. Like you're allowed. Listen, you guys have to remember, and I'm not saying anything that anybody doesn't know. Like it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Like let's not mistake that. Back in the day, country music was, it wasn't. It was, and I'm not even talking about like racial barriers. I'm talking about, music barriers. Like, they did not want to be associated with any kind of rap music whatsoever. And I'm not talking about that because of ethnicity. I'm talking about that just from style. Like they prided themselves of being like, the Grand Ole Opry. Like this is Nashville, man. Like, we're talking about banjos and no, we don't want rap. We don't want rock. That is not what country's all about because, country was Randy Travis and Dolly Parton, right? And Reba McEntire and Clint Black. Like that's what Alan Jackson. Alan Jackson's another great name, right? I mean, that's what that was back then. And they didn't want to see Nelly, right? They didn't want Jelly Roll. They didn't want to they King Brown. I mean, when you think about it, they didn't want any of that, but that's what they didn't want back then. Obviously, now they do because it's changed, right? It's changed game. I like Darius Rucker's another. I love that. Darius Rucker's been able to, obviously, with Hootie and the Blowfish, be able to kind of transition into a great country star, right? Which I love. I love Hootie, man. I love to. I mean, classic songs by Hootie and the Blowfish. Classic songs. So I think now, country is kind of taken over as you have the big country music fest, the Barefoot. I think that's what it's called. I don't go. I know my daughter's going this year, but John Party's really my wife loves John Party. She does. She loves John Party. I mean, listen, you can't not talk about Carrie Underwood either. I mean, she's kind of like changed the game when it comes to country for females, man. I mean, she's fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, she just again, she's just set records. But set records all over. Adam says Darius Rucker has a new album with Hootie and the Blowfish. Oh wow. I didn't know that. I have to check that out. Hootie had some hits, man. But yeah, I mean, listen, 80s, 90s is where it's at, man. Like I still, I remember the first, like I again, this bring back memories. I'll talk about this. I'll close it down because I love music. I love the music hits, the music segments. I'm gonna do these more and more. But we saw John Purdy for Dirks Bentley. Dirks Bentley's another one, man. Zach Brown Band's another one. But yeah, John Party, my wife always talks about him, man. Oh, him and who's the other guy? Not Keith Urban. I can't remember. Jason Aldean. My wife, like, oh my god, like it's like if I could turn myself into a Jason Aldean clone, meaning the way he looks, I might have a shot more than I do now. But yeah, listen, I go back to those 80s, 90s eras, and I just, you talked about Javon, talked about Wu up there, talked about Wu Tang, and when he says how many people, how many stars, again, man, like when you think about it, like obviously everybody talks about meth, right? Everybody's gonna talk about meth, and I get it, rightfully so. He was a stud. Ghostface, I think, had the most, right? I think Ghostface the most albums out of anybody. But in my opinion, and listen, Genius, Liquid Swords is one of the classic albums of all time. Like the fourth Shadow Boxing, Fourth Chamber, man, those hits were off the charts. But for me, only built on Cuban links, man. The Raekwon album, like out of every album that came from Wu, besides the group albums, we're just talking solo albums. I think, only built on Cuban links for Raekwon was probably the best Wu album, solo album. That or Takal, in my opinion. I like Incarcerated Scarfaces, that beat and those bars and that sound, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Really is. I just to hear that and listen, Ice Cream is one of my favorite songs to get down to. I think it's a great song. But again, hearing the way that in Liquid Swords, where they had the Shaolin style in there, and they just changed the game, man. They really did. And it's nice to see them get reunited, so to speak, and do some shows. And I mean, look, nobody even talked about, we could go on, like I said, a whole spiel, about East Coast, West Coast, when the whole East Coast thing happened. And, then you had the era, like the Master P era, that started with the Juveniles of the world and who do you but again, the 80s 90s wheelhouse. I agree, Rich. That was just, for me, I every playlist I have is 80s 90s. Now, I don't know how far 80s I'll go back, but listen, I mean, I grew up, my first album, I think that I remember hearing was Dire Straits, Money for Nothing, man. Dire Straits, man. That's what my dad used to play all the time. Kenny Loggins was all Bob Seger. These are the names. Ronnie Millsap. There's a name for you. Lee Greenwood. These are the albums that were on in my house, man. I'm a big Motown guy, by the way. Big Motown. My mom, man, that's all she listened to was Motown. Give me some Smokey Robinson all day long, man. I love me some Smokey. The Four Tops, the Commodores. Listen, Diana Ross. I go back, man. Like I have a pretty good repertoire when it comes to music, and I like them all. Like I always said, like some people will be like, "What's on your iPad?" It's always funny. Like my iPod, and I would give somebody my iPod, and I'm like, dude, I don't get it. Like I just went from Motley Crue to Kid Rock to Wu Tang to Blackstreet to Garth Brooks to Carrie Underwood to Skid Row. I'm like, how about, can we get a Counting Crows reference here, man? Like Mr. Jones is like Mr. Jones, not like the all-time best song ever. Like I could say that in my sleep, man. Like again, Adam says I had a cassette tape player and listened to Boys and Men. Boys and Men, Philly's own, man. I just watched the behind the music on them too. The phenomenal group, right? Phenomenal group, and we haven't even touched on groups like BBD, Belle Biv DeVoe. You think about it. Rich says I'm from all the way to the 50s and 60s. with oldies. You don't touch the parents' radio dial in the car. Exactly, man. Exactly. My dad had an awesome rack system. Remember the rack systems? But dad had a rack system. Had double cassette deck, had the equalizer, had the record player on top with the glass, right? You push the glass in to open it up to be able to play it. And that's all that was in there, man, was Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, the Oak Ridge Boys, the little Oak Ridge Boys love out there. Little Neil Diamond, obviously, they're a little Neil Diamond out there. That girl Poison, Belle Biv DeVoe. Johnny Cash, George Jones is another great name. George Jones, George Strait is another guy. Great name. Listen, the list just goes on. It just shows you music can really bring everybody together. It really can. Like we just had literally about a 30-minute conversation on just music. And think about that, just music. Because music has changed so many lives, from the award shows, right? To it's just it again bringing everybody together, and I think that's what's so great, that brings us all right back to what LL Cool J has done by giving those guys like a Marley Marl, and a Run DMC, Grandmaster Flash, stakes in his company or in his radio station to give back to the guys, the OGs that paved the way. Now, here's what I'll say before we get out of here. Let's tomorrow night. Now you got me on this music. Tomorrow night we're gonna talk soundtracks. So don't name any right now, but tomorrow night on the late night show, last night we'll talk some sound. Your best soundtracks that you remember. Obviously, we'll do all the sports, but the soundtracks that are in your mind. And listen, it's a late night show. For everybody's, here we go, trying to talk music. Well, listen, this is a late night show. Anything goes on late nights. We're talking everything, not just sports, life, sports, music, wrestling, you name it, man. We're talking it all. But yeah, I honestly love going to concert. It helps your mind and soul and heals your body, depending on which one you go to, depending on what concert you go to. You get thrown like a mosh pit, man. I don't know if it's going to heal your body, man. You might get beat up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you got to like Nirvana smells like Teen Spirit. Get beat up a little bit. You know what I mean? But yeah, tomorrow night we're going to talk soundtracks, man. We're going to talk soundtracks. But listen, that's right. At WWE bowling, we're going to talk. We're definitely going to talk bowling on this program, Rich. Definitely going to talk bowling, man. I can't get away from again. You know what, Rich? I saw. I was amazed. I saw first time I saw a girl who was bowling two hands, like a Shawn Rash, man. Two hands on a girl, amazing. That takes a lot of muscle, man. I'm being honest. It takes a lot of muscle. It's great. Adam, as always, buddy, I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. Rich says we drove to Savannah, Georgia to see Old Dominion, and I'm sure it was probably well worth it too. But listen, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get a snack, get a little drink before I go to bed, and I'm gonna be back here tomorrow night, man, on HRS Late Nights. Make sure you're following Heat Ratio Sports. Got some things up the pike, like I said. It's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be fun. This is what I've always wanted to do. I'm gonna keep it going. And don't forget tomorrow night, or actually it's tonight because we're right there midnight, right? So it's tonight, a live reunion show. Heat Ratio Sports, me, Coach Dave, Pittsburgh John, Mikey Googs, man, having some fun. Their event. Yep, great show tomorrow at 9, Rich. We will be live tomorrow at 9. And it's going to be fun. My man Mike is going crazy right now. I can tell you that right now. So then we might break some FCC rules tomorrow night because he's going to be locked and loaded and ready to go. But as always, man, for everybody tuning in, Javon, obviously Joe, Rich, Adam, David up there earlier. Everybody, as always, on X listening. Everybody on Facebook listening. Much appreciated. Big things coming out the pike, but just having conversations, man. Just having conversations for filling a time slot that I don't think is filled, with this kind of talk. So again, like I always say on this program, every single day, man, don't take it for granted. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you back here tomorrow night.